Hey, Cancer Warriors. This is Tonya with Power Pantaloons, a podcast. I am your holistic cancer wellness specialist. And today we have a special treat. We have Keith Robinson with us, and I'm going to let Keith explain what it is that he does. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tanya. I suppose I'll start from where I came across the information with which I work with now. And that was 16 years ago. Somebody said to me, he says, you know that it's going to be possible to reverse heart disease shortly. And I said, that's interesting. I would like to know more about that. Even though I was more tuned in to the area of cancer because both my parents had died of cancer before the age of 60. So when I was in financial services and I was setting up people's life cover or critical illness, if there was a family history issue in both sides of somebody's family, that was counted as somebody that was high risk, and there was probably a loading on their policy. So when you sort of look at the data, you realize that more people were dying from cardiovascular issues than cancer. If this is popping across my desk, it must be a sign for me to look into it. So what I did was I had my own cardiovascular system analyzed, and I was 46 at the time. The age of my vascular system was showing up to be that of a 40-year-old. So I was happy enough. I was 6 years better than my birth certificate said. And I followed a protocol, had my vascular system analyzed. 3 months later, the age of my vascular system had actually dropped down to 22.
Wow.
A couple of months after that, I had it checked again, and I had come down to a teenager. So that was really my little tester to see, was this information correct or was it not? And then I started to learn more and share more, and started to watch people get fabulous results from their health and wellness. Some people that had very serious health challenges, correcting them, people who had issues that they didn't even know what was wrong. I had people say, well, now they haven't diagnosed anything in particular, but I know I'm not right. And I said, well, look, the secret here is we don't even need to know what's wrong, because the body knows what's wrong. If it has the fuel, if it has the circulation, it will work on its own problems. And what really put this home to me one day, there was a lady coming to events that we were doing in Dublin, and she was getting migraines so bad she would lose the sight in one eye for 2 days.
Wow.
And she decided, I think I'm going to follow your protocol. Now, we always recommend what we call a vital 3 protocol. One part of the protocol is to restore the blood flow in the body by increasing nitric oxide production, as you see over my head. The second part is to provide massive amounts of live raw fruits and berries, and then massive amounts of live raw greens. So the benefit of the raw greens and the raw berries is to provide the body with the missing nutrition that is no longer in our food. So we're eating loads of food, we're getting loads of sugars, but we're not getting loads of nutrition.
So
And
when you say massive amounts of raw berries, and what do you mean by massive amounts?
I'll give you an example. The live raw berry supplement that we use, which is, as it says in the tin, live raw berries and fruits, every 30 mils of that from an antioxidant perspective is equivalent to eating 3.5 kilos of raw fruit.
Okay.
So you get
All right.
huge nutrition in a small amount. It's also a natural anti-inflammatory, natural pain suppressant, protects your cells from viruses, and balances the immune system. So that's the purpose of that. The live raw greens, every 10 mils of it is equivalent to eating 1 kilo of leafy green veg. And we know the benefit of greens in our diet, and most people don't get enough greens, and 9 people out of 10 are acidic instead of being slightly alkaline. So our body is going to keep our blood at 7.365, but most people are acidic, so they have their pH down below 7. And therefore, that is, when we're acidic, we are inviting acid-based health challenges like chronic pain, arthritis, osteoporosis, acid reflux, and cancer. They all thrive in an acidic body, but cannot survive in an alkaline one.
Right.
So these are the benefits of the raw greens and the raw berries. And most people's circulatory system is clogged up with plaque. So if you have organs and glands the far side of that plaque, what happens is they're not getting the blood supply they require. But when you reopen that blood supply and carry that nutrition, then the body says, now I can work on these problems. So this particular lady followed what we call the Vital 3 protocol. She came back to an event that we were hosting monthly in Dublin at the time. And she said, I want to tell you something. She says, my migraines have massively improved. So we said, that's great. The following month she came back, she says, she was standing up doing a testimony. She says, not only have my migraines gone, my leaky bladder has fixed itself. The following month she came back, and every month she came back, she was extending out the list of things she knows her body had fixed. Then she announced a couple of months later, she said, you don't know this about us, myself and my husband, but we've been 13 years trying to get pregnant. We are now pregnant.
Wow.
So that was my education, that the body works through its list that it has to address according to its priority, and then works its way through that and fixes what it wishes as it has the fuel and the circulation.
Well, yeah, working on its priority. We should respect that. We should be absolutely letting the body do what it needs to be doing. And I absolutely feel the body tells us this all the time, and we're just not listening.
Don't listen. We don't listen. No. There's all these little clues, and we don't pay attention to them. We just power on, and all this time we are fueling our body with processed foods. We're fueling our body with empty food, and we expect it to perform and recover the way it should if it was getting the fuel. I mean, you try and put diesel in a Formula One race car, it ain't going to work. And everyone's expecting us as a Formula One race car to perform on mediocre or poor fuel.
Yes. When I went through my whole cancer journey, the one thing I didn't bother to fix at that time was my nutrition. And 2 years ago, I really got serious about it. And I started protocols with Gary Brecka and 10X Health. And I got gene testing and blood work, and I got on some beautiful supplements. I have 3x my stamina. I've lost 75 pounds, and I've started to be real serious about the correct foods to put in my face.
Yes. It is ultra important and neglected all the time. And lots of people are even people who have been diagnosed with cancer, they're still eating foods with sugars. And people going
The
through
hospitals are giving it to them. Like it's part of.
Yeah, people are going through chemotherapy and they're sitting there, oh yeah, here's a cup of tea with plenty of sugar and here's a biscuit. Do you know?
Yeah.
And they're fueling cancer. You have to either give the body nothing or give it clean food if you want the body to work on that type of problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it blows my mind the garbage that I was fed when I went through my cancer story. And when I interview other survivors, they're all saying the same things. And I'm like, it's huge. It's huge.
It has me wondering, is that on purpose? If you look at the statistics of the survival rate of people using the likes of chemotherapy over a 10-year period, isn't it a 97% fail rate? So
it is a strong fail rate, which is why I believe that you need to do holistic mind, body, spirit. I do think that there is a place for allopathic medicine, which is the traditional medicine over here in America. But I also think that you need to incorporate other things. And I think, as you were saying, that your body knows what they are. So when I started looking into that, my body was very interested in Reiki, aromatherapy, flower essences, grounding, crystals, sound healing. And I used all of this stuff. I was diagnosed with a carcinosarcoma of the uterus. It was stage 3, phase 2, and I had a 5% chance of survival. When they gave me my hysterectomy, they took out over 10 pounds of cancer from my body.
Mhm.
And I think that me incorporating all the holistic things definitely, this is 17 years later, right? I am a survivor of 17 years, but I think the biggest thing was my mindset. Every day I
Right.
got up and I decided to live. And how I did that is I visualized that I was putting on Wonder Woman's underwear, because in my head, Wonder Woman doesn't die. And I
Yeah.
think that that was a huge factor. I do think that you choose whether or not you're going to survive it or not.
Yeah. And when sometimes people are told a bit of bad news in that respect and told, oh, you have 6 months. In that situation, some people, that clock is counting back there and then, because they never bother to look. They've given up the day they were told that. That I don't think that's helpful.
I don't either. And I was never actually given an expiration date because I told him I didn't want it. Like I okay, 5% chance of survival. I disagree with
Going
that,
for that
and we're just
5%.
not going to talk about that. I don't want to hear. Do not. I'm not meat. We're not putting a sticker on me saying I'm going to be expired in 6 months. That's bullshit. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
And I sat with my oncologist and I said, I am going to be doing these things because I feel that it's important that your oncologist is on board with
Yeah.
your whole treatment. And I let him know, and he rolled his eyes at me, but he understood that it was non-negotiable, right? Like these are things that I will be
Yes.
doing. You, as my doctor, need to know that I will be doing them. And something about it worked. I'm here. I'm still here.
We had an interesting case in Dublin of a gentleman with he had a lung tumor, and he went to one of our cancer hospitals in Dublin to get treatment on that. And his daughter happened to be a huge proponent of what we do from a V3 perspective. And she said to her dad, I think you should take this. And the reason she wanted him to take it was to protect his body from the poisons that were about to be put in there. And he says, no, they won't let me take it. Won't. And he sort of dismissed it and everything else. So he went it on and he had his first round of chemo, and his bloods and his immune system hit the floor. And so then they sent him home to recuperate before they could continue. And she says, so now you're going to have to take this stuff. And he says, no, no, they won't let me. He says, I'm going to ring the dietitian in the hospital. So she rang the dietitian and said, look, my dad's there. His bloods and immune system hit the floor in the first round. I want to build him back up again. She says, I'm a nutritional therapist and I know what I'm doing. And the dietitian says, what are you talking about using? She says, food. Oh, then there's no problem at all. So, because these are food supplements. And so anyway, within a week, his bloods and his immune system were back up to normal. So she sent him back down to Dublin with the V3 in hand. So he continued to take the V3 during his treatment, but he had no side effects of the chemo.
Yeah.
Everybody else that was going through chemotherapy, they had issues with energy, sleep, appetite. But every time the nurses were looking for him, he was out walking the grounds of the hospital. And the oncologist said to him, what are you doing that nobody else is doing? He says, you need to talk to my daughter, he says. So the next time Mandy was up there, she went in to explain to him what she had her dad on and why. He turned around and said to her, he says, we know how to kill cancer. He says, but we don't know how to protect the body. You guys have the answer to that. I wish all my patients were on this. And Mandy said to him, sure, what's stopping you? He says, I wouldn't be allowed.
Right. And
That's where
and
the problem is.
that is part of the problem. And as you said earlier, you think that it's by design, and I agree with that. I don't want to get all conspiracy woo woo, but the pharmaceuticals and the massive amount of money that they spend to have all the right, like if you add the pharmaceuticals and you add the fact that here in the States, uh herbalism used to be practiced, and back in the 100 years ago, some individuals decided they were going to take it out of the curriculum, and they did it on purpose because they wanted to promote
Yeah,
pharmaceutical health. And
exactly.
here we are 100 years later, ravished by it. And we need to start incorporating food as medicine, because food is medicine, as well as herbs and all of the other beautiful modalities that work in
Yes,
conjunction to make us whole people.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's too much control by one grouping over everybody when that should be spread out more.
Yes. And part of the problem also is I want it fixed right this moment. And nutrition and herbalism takes time. It's not something that happens immediately or overnight. And people are looking for the quick fix. And we're trained to expect that now. And that's part of the problem too.
Well, I have seen some quite fast results, especially from a cardiovascular perspective. And obviously, if your cardiovascular system has improved and you have the correct nutrition in there, so every part of the body is benefiting from that. But I got a phone call from a surgeon in one of the private hospitals here one day, and he asked me to help him get his brother off medications, he was hypertensive and on 2 medications at this point. And but we worked together. I guided his brother on what to use and what levels to use, and then he took his own BP and sent them to his brother every day. And then the vascular surgeon or the urology surgeon was telling him when to start lowering his medications. But that guy was off all his medications within 6 weeks.
I believe you. I absolutely believe you. I like one of my like I since I was a child, I've always been interested in herbs and herbal medicine and stuff like that. And every time a doctor wanted to prescribe something to me, and I'm like, no, if I didn't feel that it was something I had to have, I never wanted to start long-term prescriptions, because as far as I'm concerned, once you're on it, right? Like,
Yes.
and that was my viewpoint, and it's been my viewpoint for like 20, 30 years now, and not longer than that because I'm older than that. But and I think that that's part of it too, right? Like, pharmaceuticals want you to be on medication forever. That's how they get paid.
Yes, it's a case of they want you to be on as many medications as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And then each medication has a side effect. And the next thing is you're on more medications to cover the side effects of the first ones. Next thing is your kidneys start to give up, and then you're on dialysis, and the whole thing continues into a quagmire. But there's something that from a cancer perspective that I think is important that people take on board. Are you noticing that there's a huge rise in cancers, especially since 2021? Uh,
Uh, I am. When I was diagnosed, it was 1 in 3 was expected to have some kind of cancer. Now that number is 1 in 2. And I'm
yes.
noticing that a lot more younger people are being diagnosed.
And what would your opinion be as to why?
Well, I mean, again, with the conspiracy theories, I I've seen information come out that the vaccine for COVID contained cancer causing agents. So that's absolutely a factor. I believe that the stuff that we eat over here, especially in America, the box
Yeah,
stuff, all that, because it's cheaper.
yeah.
It's cheaper to buy. And so, yeah,
The
I
stuff
think I,
what I'm seeing is that what you were talking about is SV40 is actually interfering with the immune system, number one. But the spike proteins, I was listening to doctors talking about cancers that have been taken out of people, and in the center of them, in center of these turbo cancers are spike proteins. So when somebody took part in that particular medical experiment, or even coerced into taking part of that medical experiment, what happened is it's not a normal vaccine, because if you had a vaccine in times gone by, you had a bit of dead virus put
yeah,
into you, so your immune system would identify that in the future, and your immune system will cater for a 34% variation in what you may have experienced in day one. So that's a fair variation. But if you took part in that medical experiment and you got the mRNA gene altering injection, that's instructing your body to manufacture the problem.
Yes.
So your body's manufacturing about 50 billion spike proteins, where you would have only caught a few had you contracted COVID in some way, which most people should have been able to deal with, unless you were bunched in the first place. But I was listening to Dr. Brian Ardis. I don't know whether you follow any of his information or not in the States. Have you heard of him?
I have not.
I think this is very important information that he is sharing all over the place. I'll be able to send you on WhatsApp afterwards an interview of him explaining all this information.
Absolutely.
But he maintains you can block the spike proteins attaching to the ACE2 receptors by nicotine, so wearing a nicotine patch. So anytime I come across anybody who has unwittingly taken part in that, start wearing a nicotine patch.
For how long?
How long is your body going to make the spike proteins?
You tell me. You're the expert here.
We don't know. Nobody knows.
I
mean, it's an unknown quantity. And then, of course, you don't know whether you got a placebo or whether you got the real thing. But if you can look up your injection, howbadismybatch.com, and you can actually see whether you got a placebo, whether you got one of the mediocre ones, or whether you got one of the worst ones.
Wow. Okay. By the way, everybody, this is not medical advice, right? Like we're having a conversation. This is educational purposes only.
Yes.
I didn't know that they were giving out placebos. You just taught me something.
Yes. Well, you see, if they didn't put placebos out in the first place, everybody would be in deep shit very fast. And then everyone else would realize there's something. So there had to be a fair percentage of placebos in the early stages. But I don't believe there's any placebos in the boosters. I mean, I'm picking up information from all these experts. In fact, I listened to Dr. David Martin, who spoke in the European Union back several months ago, last year. And he actually has released a paper trail of everything to do with COVID. And it goes back a long way. And when I was doing my research, I realized and found out that the countries bought in the COVID-19 PCR test kits in 2017.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, well,
I know that math is not my best quality, but based on my math, that would be pre the pandemic.
3 years before. So that's why I call it the pandemic. It was a planned event. But if Dr. David Martin has the entire paper trail, even down to Ralph Barrick in the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and the work they did in it that passed to the Wuhan lab in China, that then passed to the underground biological warfare laboratories in Ukraine to manufacture it.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah.
You know, the longer I live in this world where we're at, the more conspiracy theorist I sound. And I like
Well, you have to remember the word conspiracy theorist was put out by the FBI to try and discredit the people who were asking questions about JFK's assassination. So it's a discrediting tool. So as I always say, somebody who calls somebody a conspiracy theorist, you have the idiot who does no research calling names to the person who has done research.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and then digging through all the information and deciding what's actually put out there as BS, and like it's just could be a little overwhelming.
Yeah, but I thought it was a very important takeaway for people who have taken part in that medical experiment. Start wearing a nicotine patch if it's the only thing you do.
How do you have protein spikes tested in your body if you were one of these individuals?
I think you can go and get blood tests, the live blood analysis, and you can actually see them in the blood.
Okay.
There's other tests you can get done in the blood. You can get a D-dimer test to find out whether they have microclotting going on. And then there's another test, I think it's your troponin levels will tell you whether you have myocarditis. Because the amount, Peter McCullough has done huge information out on this. He's one of the most published cardiologists in the world. He before this whole thing started, he said about 1 person in 1 million had myocarditis. 1 in 35 of the people who took part in that medical experiment have myocarditis now.
Huh.
That's
Very
inflammation in the
interesting.
heart.
That's crazy pants. Honestly, like it's crazy pants. I believe you, and I'll be putting the links. And Keith is going to provide all these links for me, and I'll put them in the show notes so everybody can have access to it and do your own due diligence.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
I've been doing a lot of research on the whole thing, and I follow people who are revealing information. Unfortunately, a lot of people who were putting out truth in the early stages, like Professor Luc Montagnier, who's Nobel Prize winner, he was said at the very start, the ivermectin stops COVID in its tracks, and so he got attacked. He got his Facebook taken down, his Instagram taken down. He got really badly attacked, but he was correct. Ivermectin was hugely helpful for that. But if there was an early treatment, they never would have got emergency use authorization for the injections. So that's why that was attacked.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we can definitely go on a tangent about the TikTok ban and why the TikTok is being banned. It's because
Yes,
people are using TikTok for
to
freedom of
share the
speech
truth. Yeah,
and sharing the truth. And
yeah,
it has absolutely nothing to do with data breaches, because if it did, Facebook wouldn't exist right now. The amount of data
exactly.
breaches that we've had with all of the American
Yes,
but that has nothing to do with my topic here, right? Like, but I could pontificate all day long about that one. Like, it just, we've been fed lies our entire lives,
yeah,
and now that like there's an energetic shift, right? Like you can feel it. The light workers have woken up, and we are working together, and we are, because of social media, we're able to find each other, and when we get together, the light just gets brighter and brighter, and
yeah. And
the
support. We can support each other, and we can support people who want to travel down a different road. Not saying you ditch everything, but take information on board that can be hugely helpful to you. And it's
so you can
some of the
make
stuff is
educated
cybernetic.
decisions for
Yes,
yourself, right? Like,
exactly.
you should have all of the information. You should know ahead of time, right? Like when they
Yes,
give you chemotherapy, they give you the massive dose. You don't necessarily require that giant dose that they give you.
yeah.
Microdosing has been proven to be more effective and less
Invasive.
long-term
Mm.
fatal,
Yes, yeah.
you
Uh,
know.
and protect your body. You see, what I think there is happening, they're filling you with poisons in the hope that they kill the cancer, but at the same time they're killing everything else that's good, and they're hoping that your immune system will come back before cancer comes back. That's the betting game. But if you're helping your body to deal with the poisons and improving your immune system and alkalizing your body and doing all those things at the same time, if you feel you have to go that route, at least you're protecting your body from the treatments, and it should be a much more successful outcome.
Yes, and the fact that the standard of care has been surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation for so long, with no updates, no new improved technologies at all introduced, show that there's a problem, right? Like their sound vibrations can kill, can destroy tumor
Correct.
masses, right?
Yes,
This is technology we already have access to. They're doing it for things like gallstones. What
exactly.
why are we not doing it for tumor mass? Like,
Yeah.
hello, we should be.
Yes.
It's not
But
as profitable.
yeah, and they're not as happy about changing protocols. And what was the protocol for somebody if they went into hospital with COVID or testing positive for COVID? What was the protocol? Remdesivir. Remdesivir had to be pulled off a clinical trial before because it caused the kidneys to shut down. But yet everybody who was supposed to have COVID, which was probably influenza, because influenza disappeared in 2020, didn't it? How can it disappear for a year and then come back? But anyway, when you were brought into hospital for and told it's COVID, they were put on remdesivir. What does remdesivir do? Shut down the kidneys. What happens when your kidneys are going down? You get fluid in the lungs. What happens when you get fluid in the lungs? Oh, put them on a ventilator. That'll finish them. It was shocking what's been happening, but nobody's doing research.
Kind of overwhelming, right? When you look at it, like, when you're young and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and you believe your government actually is there to protect you, and then as the onion layers keep getting peeled back, and you find out just how corrupt the top is, it's a little overwhelming.
I heard a very interesting testimony of a guy in the US where he was in a car accident and car turned over. I mean, he had a few bruises. He wasn't bad. But when the emergency services arrived, as he was telling them, no, I don't need an injection. I don't need a set. By that time, they'd put it into him. He woke up in hospital on a ventilator. And when he woke up, he just pulled the thing out. He got out of bed. He went down to the nurse's station and he said, why was I on a ventilator? And they went as white as a ghost and said, well, you shouldn't be up here. He says, I am here. Why was I on a ventilator? You tested positive for COVID. He says, I was in a car wreck. This has nothing to do with COVID. Why were you trying to kill me? And they didn't know what to say. But the reason he awakened is because he used a certain amount of recreational drugs at the weekend, and whatever they gave him as a sedative didn't knock him out enough. That's why he came to and saved his life.
It's kind of crazy.
It's stories like that make you realize I need to do research. I need to understand what's going on. I need to be in control myself.
Yes, absolutely. And we will provide links for all of this, so you could do your own research, whether you agree or disagree with what we're saying here. I encourage the discourse, right? This is how we all learn, is
Yes.
by having conversations. So how do people find out more about your protocol and how to access it? How do we get them in touch with you?
I do Zoom calls all the time with people on a one-to-one basis. I don't charge people anything to share information, answer questions, or even to support them through this journey if they want to do that. So what I think the main reason of doing the Zoom call is to share information and to answer the questions. Because if you have somebody that has, we'll say, high blood pressure, it's important that they understand why I have the high blood pressure. So if you have a lack of blood flow getting through the vascular system and those organs are getting less blood supply, they're going to be asking the heart to rise in pressure to try and get blood supply there. So this is why people end up with higher and higher blood pressure. But if you melt the plaque and you clean the arteries and supply the blood flow to wherever it needs to get to, it stops asking the heart to rise in pressure. So it's all common sense stuff, but people need to understand things like that so they can understand. And that's really just from a blood pressure perspective. So they can have the knowledge and make informed decisions. And then if they decide, well, look, I'd like to deal with this in a natural way, I will guide them on what to access and I'll guide them on using it through the process.
Fantastic. So a Calendly link?
I don't have a Calendly link, but I will share with you. You have my LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn can be shared with anybody.
Okay. All right. So I just want to know what we're putting in the show notes so people can get in touch with you.
I will send you some three different ways for people to contact me. And I'll actually put it in here in the notes.
That's not going to help me because as soon as we stop, I'm not going to have it.
I will send you to on WhatsApp.
That sounds perfect. Okay. So I will make sure to put all of Keith's information in the show notes for everybody. Keith, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. You have been very informative, and this was a great discussion, and I appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Until next time, Cancer Warriors, you know what I'm going to tell you. Go get all of your routine testing done. the stuff that you're supposed to be doing. And if you think that there's something going on with your body, you're right. Till next time.